Hello and welcome to this week's edition of iTorah on the Erev Shabbat, Shabbat Eve, that we prepare for Matan Torah, the giving of our Holy Torah on the festival of Shavuot. It's an interesting thing, the relationship between the Torah and the Jewish people. In Kabbalistic literature, this is compared to the relationship between the soul and the body. The Jewish people being the body and the Torah being the soul. Now, just as it's impossible for a body to survive without a soul, so also it's impossible for the Jewish people to survive without the Torah. But similarly also, just as a soul cannot function without a body, so also the Torah cannot function without the Jewish people. And so there is this symbiotic relationship which exists between the Jewish people and the Torah. Each one of us making up for something that the other doesn't have. Well, once we understand the Jewish people and the Torah as being body and soul, and once we understand that one cannot live without the other, it only stands to reason that there are many similarities within Torah and that compared to things within the Jewish people. For example, we find that a Torah, no matter how beautifully written it is, now how carefully inscribed each one of the letters of the Torah are, if even one letter is missing, it doesn't matter the extent of the beauty and the care and the concern which was taken for every other letter, the Torah in fact is not kosher. Similarly also when it comes to the Jewish people, it doesn't matter that 90% of the Jewish people are perfect or even 99% of the Jewish people. If we in fact are missing one Jew, if one Jew is not pulling his weight, if one Jew has somehow or the other been excluded from Klal Yisrael, it doesn't matter how beautiful, how magnificent, how wonderful all the rest of our Jews are, there is something missing from Klal Yisrael, from the Jewish people. This is the reason why it says that when Mashiach comes, he will take every single Jew out of exile, and the expression that Rashi uses is that he holds everyone by the hand, and if necessary, he actually literally drags them out of exile. And so for this reason too, that the Lubavitch Rebbe taught us to have so much concern, so much care for a Jew, even one Jew at the end of the earth. The Rebbe would send his emissaries there to try to educate him, to try to connect him to Am Yisrael, to the Jewish people. We find another thing, another comparison I should say, between the Torah and the Jewish people. And that is that when it comes to the Torah, it's not sufficient that every single letter be there, but it's also important that every letter have its own individual identity. If one letter touches another letter, then the entire Sefer Torah is disqualified, because that would compromise the integrity of that one letter. That letter, so to speak, that letter's identity has become smudged through the identity of another person. It's not uniquely his. And therefore we have this law of mukaf gevil, that every letter in the Torah must be surrounded by white parchment. In other words, every letter has to exist on its own. The same thing also applies to Klal Yisrael, to the Jewish people. As true as it is that we require every single Jew, that even one Jew cannot be left behind, this doesn't, however, mean that all Jews are merely cogs in a wheel. Quite to the contrary. Every Jew has got his individual mission, something that without him would not be fulfilled. He has a specific purpose, a specific aim, and a specific importance. He has his own identity. In fact, as part of our prayers we say, V'tein chelkeinu b'toratecha, give us our portion in your Torah. Meaning to say that every Jew has got his individual and unique portion in the Torah itself. So this is a comparison between the Torah and the Jewish people. The Torah requires every single letter to be in existence. The Jewish people require every single Jew to be part of Am Yisrael. The Torah requires every letter to have its own individuality. And we Jews too, each one of us, have got our own unique mission. There's a beautiful story which actually brings out this comparison between the Jews and the letters of a Sefer Torah. When the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe first came to America, America wasn't like it is today. There weren't streets of ultra-Orthodox Jews in Brooklyn and other places. It was virtually a wilderness from a Jewish perspective, from a Torah perspective. And the previous Rebbe made it his business to try to ensure that America would look like a Jewish place, just as Europe had once looked. And with this in mind, he appointed amongst his students shluchim, emissaries, and he sent them out to far-off places where they had traveled in order to make a parnasa, in order to make a living, in order to eke out what livelihood they could. Two of these emissaries were sent to one summer in the 40s to a remote place in America, and they came upon a Jew who still remembered village life, shtetl life in Europe. So he asked them, what is your purpose? What are you guys coming here for? What do you really want from me? So the two emissaries, the two shluchim, they said to him, he said, look, you're from a shtetl, so you remember, not every village could afford a sefer. Not every village could afford a scribe. So what would happen is that there would be scribes who would travel from village to village, and they would go enter a village and they'd say, has anyone got a Sefer Torah to fix up? Is there a letter missing in the Sefer Torah? Is there a letter missing in the tefillin? Is there a message missing in the mezuzah? That's my job. I'll help you fix it up. Similarly, also, the emissary said to him, that's our job too. Every Jew is like a letter in the Sefer Torah. Our job is to go from village to village and find the broken letters, the letters which have been erased, and to rewrite them, to fix them up, so that the Jew is once again perfect. Well, this answer was liked very much by this Jew in this American area. And when the shluchim, the emissaries, came back to report to the Rebbe, so the Rebbe asked them, how did it go? And they told him what they'd said to this fellow, to this American fellow who'd originally come from Europe. So the Rebbe said, very nice, but you made one mistake. A Jew is not like a letter in the Sefer Torah. Ink on parchment can become erased. Ink on parchment can disappear. A Jew can never disappear. And we don't need you to recreate the Jew. Rather, a Jew is compared to the letters which were engraved in the tablets of stone. As long as the stone exists, the letters exist. So also the Jew. As long as the world exists, the Jew exists. The only thing that can happen is that just like the letters in the tablets of stone, they could be filled with dirt, they could be filled with clay, and then they would have to be cleaned out. Similarly also a Jew. Sometimes a Jew on the surface is filled with a bit of dirt, a bit of clay. It's your responsibility merely to be able to clean that out, and then to show the Jew the beauty which he always had. What a beautiful lesson. I hope we can take this with us as we go to celebrate the giving of the Torah, the receiving of the Torah on Shavuot. I wish you all Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. Signing off, Rabbi Ben Sion Milecki.